Bava Batra Daf Yud Gimel with Aleph and Amud Beis.
I want to dedicate our learning today to the memory, the Ilu Nishmata Shel Rina Esther Basarav Daniel Ephraim, my niece who we lost very sadly yesterday. Just a wonderful, wonderful human being, a wonderful woman, a wonderful mother and wife, and just someone who brought light into every room she walked into. We'll miss her. Her loss is sad, and we wish tanchumim, we wish comfort to my brother and all of his family.
We're dealing with one of the fundamental principles in Bava Batra, which is how you split up a partnership that isn't working for various different reasons, and the idea of good or agud, which will come up over and over again. What is good or agud? Firstly, we have the Gemara saying, Rabbi Yehuda Amar it dina de good or agud, Rav Nachman Amar let dina de good or agud. There's a machlokes Rav Yehuda and Rav Nachman, whether we are bound by the principle of good or agud. What is good or agud? Says Rashi, Zeh sherotzeh lachlok, omer lezeh she'eino rotzeh lachlok. One person wants to split the partnership, the other one doesn't. Let's say we're dealing in a situation where the field, if it is a field that is in partnership, is too small to be effective for two people. Or kotzli damim, ukenei lecha chelki, or ani akotz damim ve'eten lecha bechelkecha, she'i efshar b'shutfutach. Either make a price, and I will either buy or sell, or I will make a price and buy or sell. This is the idea of good or agud, and we'll go into it in greater detail. We were raised as children. If there was a piece of cake that I had to share with my brother, my father would always say, one of you cut, the other one choose, based on the principle of good or agud. And that ensures a certain fairness. And that's the idea. The split, you fix the price, I'll either buy or sell at that price, or I'll fix the price and you can choose whether to buy or sell. That's good or agud. And what we see in the sugi is that although we learned in the introduction to Bava Batra, that Bava Batra, unlike Bava Kama and Bava Metzia, is not based on psukim, it's not based on doraisas. These are not laws of the Torah that are given to us that we then implement in our daily lives and into our legal and commercial interactions. This is laws of contract and agreement and legal and social norms in society. That's what Bava Batra is. Yet, nevertheless, we'll see today that as much as that is so, we're still governed by certain moral guardrails, by certain ethical guardrails that the Torah puts down. Even though this is all about agreements and contracts, there are still principles. The free market system of the Torah is not unbridled capitalism. Yes, there is capitalism, there is free market, but there are also some very strong principles that introduce balance into the free market. And in the general world, it's quite difficult to hit that balance, because the idea of free market is to keep government out of it, to keep regulations out of it, to let the market find its own efficiencies. But with that, things start happening, as we see today and in the last several decades, where the capitalism and the greed can become completely out of control. In the Torah system, there are checks and balances to keep the freedom of the market, and yet to ensure a morality and an ethic and a justice and a fairness in the way it plays out, and we'll see an example of it here. Says Rava to Rav Nachman, how do you split a partnership then? If there isn't good or agud, what's a fair way to split a partnership? What happens if you've got two sons, or a firstborn and a second, that the father left them a slave or an animal? A non-kosher animal that you can't shecht and share the meat. Ketzad osin, if they want to split up, how do they split it? They split time. The one gets the benefit of it one day, and the other one gets the benefit of it 2 days if he's a bechor, or 1 day each. So there are two ways of going about splitting up an object that isn't working in partnership. The one is good or agud, and the other day is chalukat yamim, where you split the time. These are the two ways that it can be done. Amar Ameimer on the next daf, Hilchata it dina de good or agud. Ameimer paskins that we hold by the law of agud, good and agud, and that's how the poskim paskin. The Beis Yosef brings two interpretations of the word good or agud, what it means, and they're relevant for our understanding. It says, Rashi explains, and he brings it in the name of the Ramban, Kivan sharav toleh adavar bekitzat hadamim, Alma svirele shezeh yachol la'alot bedamim velomar knei lecha besach zeh chelki. Since Rashi says good or agud means kotzli damim, the Beis Yosef explains, I bring it in the top of the next page of the sources, we can't have a partnership anymore, so either I'll fix the price or you do. There's a pasuk in Daniel where the word godu means chop down, cut, make a deal. Klomar kotz damim ukneo, kotz damim vekneo. Uval ha'oruch piresh, but the Oruch, one of the early Italian Rishonim, who wrote one of the very early dictionaries, an Aramaic dictionary, so to say, but with that dictionary is an important perushim. He learns that God comes milashon meshicha, as it says, kru mishchu lochem tzon. By the case of the Korban Pesach, it says, draw for yourself a lamb for the Korban Pesach, for the Paschal lamb, and the Onkelos translates that as nagidu. V'hainu meshoch emshoch, klomar, or mechor, either buy or sell. Meshoch means either you pull it to you or I'll pull it to me, but we can't both be holding on to it at the same time. And the difference between Rashi and the Oruch is by Rashi it's the individual who fixed the price, and then he says Kotz, one of us will determine a price, and then there'll be a decision about buying or selling. Whereas according to the Oruch, it seems to be more that Beis Din determines a price. You have it evaluated. Once it's evaluated, either you buy or I buy, but one of us have to buy the other out at the price that the Beis Din have settled. So back to the Beis Yosef on the previous page on the first page of the sources, where he brings in the name of Ramban that since Rashi says the idea here is fix a price and then one of us buy and sell, that implies the svira le shezeh yachol la'alot bedamim v'lomar knei lecha b'sach zeh chelki ve'af al pi she'eno shaveh or aniyekne. He can put an unrealistic price on it as well, because it balances out equally. This field could be worth in the market $10,000. And he could say, my price is $100,000. Either I buy it from you for $100 or you sell it to me for $100. And either way is fine. If you want to keep it, because now the nitzbah, the one who is being claimed from, has the option. So he's being given an option. So the Ramban says it would seem from Rashi that it makes no difference at what price you fix the possibility of separating. The Rif goes along a similar line and says, The Rif says there are those who say, we'll see in Tosfos who those are, who say that this good or agud only works if they both have the ability to act. So I can't say it's $100,000 for something that's worth $10,000 if I know you don't have $100,000, because then I'm forcing a sale. Says the Rif, so some say it's only when there's some kind of equilibrium in terms of their commercial ability with respect to the price that's being fixed for the property. But if the one is wealthy and the one is poor, this doesn't work. We don't split it this way. Says the Rif, we don't hold that. I don't hold that. This is a din, this is a halacha, which seems to imply that the Rif, and therefore Rashi too, according to the Ramban, hold that this is a law of the Torah. Good or agud, that when the two have to split up the partnership, the way they do it is by fixing a price, and even if the price is an unrealistic price, that's the way you do it. And theoretically, the other person has the opportunity to raise the money or to receive the money in the sale. And in fact, the Kiryat Sefer is an important parish on the Rambam. The Kiryat Sefer lived in Sfat at the beginning of the 16th century, the time of the Mechaber, when Rabbi Yosef Karo was there. And he wrote this important Sefer on the Rambam. Mainly, his main objective is actually clarifying when it's Doraisa, when it's not Doraisa, what kind of Derabonon is it. And the Kiryat Sefer says at the beginning of Hilchot Shchenim, V'nired dechol zehu min haTorah. This whole sugya of good or agud is a din in the Torah. That's the way it is, and that would support the Rif and Rashi, the way the Ramban learns him, in saying it doesn't matter if one is poor or one is not poor. That's the way it is. The Torah lays down that the way you divide a partnership is with good or agud. But Tosfos brings two views. Tosfos brings it dina de good or agud nira liri da afilu bedamim yekarim harbe yoter mishovyo yachol lomar lo or good or agud. Says the Ri, learning like Rashi and the Rif, that this is irrespective of wealth and relative wealth. Anybody can impose, as long as he has the option of buying and selling. If he cannot afford to buy and sell, that's not our issue, because this is a law of the Torah. That's just the way it is. It's an axiomatic law. But ein nireh l'ritzvah, it doesn't seem so to the ritzvah. The Maharam points out that this is probably not the ritzvah, but the riva. And there's quite an interesting difference. The ritzvah is a Talmud of the ri. And we've just had the Ri saying something, and it could be that the Ritzvah disagrees with the Ri, but the Maharam holds that this is the Riva. The Riva was also Talmud of Rashi, but the Riva founded the German school of Tosfos. So there's often a split in worldview between Ashkenaz, the German view of Tosfos, and the French Tosfos, which is the school of Ri and Rabbeinu Tam. So ve'ein nireh l'ritzvah or l'riva, so if you have a small yard that doesn't allow for 4 amot each, which means if you split it, each one has an unusable yard. Anything less than 4 amot is considered an unusable yard. If the whole yard is less than 8 square amot, and you're going to split it up, it's not going to work. So you've got to break the partnership. One needs to get the yard, one needs to get the money. What do we use? We use gud or agud, says the Rivo. That's only if there is financial equilibrium, because if not, you can force a sale. You know that he can't afford to buy for $100,000, so you make the price or a little bit higher, whatever price you want to make. You know he can't buy, so he's forced to sell. Person doesn't want to sell. He doesn't want to sell his property. He wants to stay involved in his property, and therefore that wouldn't be a fair way to conclude this. Now, if it's a doraisa, if this is a law of the Torah, we would say we don't care whether it's fair or it's not fair. The Torah gives us the way to go, and we have to work around that. But if we say that it's not a law of the Torah, that this is a law of the Rabbon, and that the rabbis instituted the law, it's a little different. And we see that in the Rashbo. So the Rashbo, apart from writing Perushim on Shas, also wrote an incredibly important, very large work of Shailos Utshuvas Responsa, where he answered questions. And in this particular one, he says that whether we use gud or agud, or we use chalukat hazmanim, takantahi, this is a law of the rabbis, this is not a law of the Torah. So he's going in a different direction from the way we've learnt and understood the Rif and the Rashi according to the Ramban, and the way the Kiryas Sefer explains the Rambam. The Torah law is anybody can split. Your partner's in something, it's a very small field. If you want to split the partnership, you split the partnership. You don't force people to stay together. If that means each one has too small a field to work, that's their problem. They should find a way to stay in the partnership. And if they can't, either one can unilaterally terminate the partnership. Ela mishum, but why did the Chachamim introduce gud or agud? Mishum asiyat hatov v'hayashar. And here we have an overarching principle that has to guide the Beis Din and the Chachomim in the way they apply laws of contract and laws of agreement and social norms. All the laws of Bava Batra, according to the Rashbo, are governed by an overriding law of Asita Hatov Ayashar. You should do that which is right and straight. You should do that which is good and straight. And that idea of Asita Tova Yashar is an idea that the Ramban expresses very beautifully and classically in his piece in the Torah on the mitzvah of Kedoshim Tiyu, you shall be holy. And the Ramban says, V'chein derech haTorah lifrot v'lichlol b'kiyotzei b'zeh, the Torah will often give you various specific laws and then give you an overarching guiding principle for those laws. Ki acharei hazarat pratei hadinim v'chol masar matan shebnei adam, after the Torah has given us a whole lot of laws of how to interact, the laws of Shomrim and the laws of Nezikim, everything we learnt in Bava Kama and everything we learnt in Bava Metzia. Lo tignov, lo tigzol, lo tonu, ona'ah, and ribit, usha'ara azarot, all the other laws. Amar bichlal, the Torah then gives us an overarching principle, v'asita hayashar v'hatov. And that's not enough. You can't just keep the details of halakha, you've got to keep the spirit of halakha as well. And the spirit of halakha is fairness and goodness. Shikanes ba'aseh hayosher v'hashvaya. There should be equilibrium and fairness. V'chol lifnim mishrat hadim l'ratzon chaverav kasher afaresh. Going a little bit further than the minimum requirements of the law to satisfy the other person too. And so with Shabbos, there are all the things you can't do on Shabbos. And then the Torah gives us an additional law, Shenema Tishbot, make a Shabbos. You could keep all the laws of Shabbos and it's not a Shabbos. You figured out how to turn your TV on automatically and you're watching the soccer game and your phone is buzzing in the background and you've got the screen on so you can read the messages. You figured it all out. So you're keeping the laws of the Shabbos, but you're not having a Shabbos. There's not Tishbot. There's also got to be Tishbot. We have to be Kedoshim. It's not enough to just keep the minute details of the law. We've got to be Kedoshim. We've got to be people who have sanctity in their lives. And so here too, it's true that if there's a small field, one can walk away from it and say, I want to split, and leave the other one with something unworkable. You can do that midoraisa, but the Torah says that's not the way to do it. The Torah itself tells us. So there is a doraisa in it. The Torah tells us you've got to do it in a way which is fair. And the Chachomim innovate this idea of gud or agud or chalukat hazman as a way to split up the partnership in a way that is fair. So this idea, as we see in Bava Batra, yes, it's all about legal agreements and it's about contracts and it's about social norms, but there's always this underlying principle that has to guide all of that, and that's asita hayashar v'atov. When we're dealing with one another, it's not sufficient to go by the legal requirements, to be able to follow the contract exactly. What's important is to be able to understand the meaning of Asita Hatova Hayashar. Very briefly, there was once a case where I was persuading a very big organization, a company in America that consumes petrochemicals, and I was working with a Saudi Arabian petrochemical company, and I persuaded them to circumvent the lawyers and to do a one-page contract. And the one-page contract is the quantity, the quality, the shipment, just the basic details, and the values that govern them. If we have a dispute, how will we resolve it? What's the atmosphere between us? What are the values that govern them? And they went along with it. They got into a bit of trouble with the legal department. They actually went along with it. But what was interesting was, much later on, the company in America ran out of the chemicals, contacted the Saudis and says, is there any way you can get us a shipment quicker than the next shipment is due? Because the plant is due to it's going to close down and that costs millions to get it going again. Is there anything you can do to help? And they came back by telex at that time, not by email, and they said, contractually, of course, we wouldn't, but we don't have a contract. We have an understanding of values that govern us. We have another ship on the way to South America, and that's governed by contract. And we found an out in the contract. So we'll cancel their contract and we'll send the ship to you and save you the millions and millions of dollars. There's sometimes you've got to be able to look at an arrangement between people and understand the values that govern it. And the value of the Torah that governs interactions is asita yashar v'atov. Sometimes does that cost you a bit of money? Sometimes it costs you a bit of money. But that's the idea of Kedoshim Tiyu. That's the idea of being a holy people. And the Ramban says that's the first commandment in the 10 Commandments. Make me your God. Live as if I'm your God. Don't live by contract. Live by godliness. Don't live by the lawyers. Live by godliness. I was involved in another issue here, around here, between two people, and they got the lawyers involved. They asked me to help. I said, I will not speak to lawyers. I'll speak to the two of you, and when you're finished, you'll give it to the lawyers to draw up an agreement. I will not talk to lawyers, because we're dealing with asita yashar v'atov, not with legal. You'll never get to an agreement if you're dealing just with the law. And that's the understanding here. Yes, Bava Batra deals with social norms and legal norms, but we're always governed by an underlying principle, a value of doing that which is good, that which is right, that which is fair, so that we can be a nation that has a divine quality of Kedoshim Tiyu.